And welcome to another edition of A Book and a Beverage. We are lucky tonight to have Sirrah Medeiros with us. Did I get the name right?
You're good. You're
Oh,
good.
all right. Okay. And now I have to say, please like and subscribe. I've got the two things I have to do now. It's easy from here on.
There you go.
So, Sirrah, you were previously in the military.
Correct. Yes, I was in the Marine Corps from 85 to early 90. It's been a long
And
time ago.
where were you stationed?
I did my schooling out at Courthouse Bay, Camp Lejeune, and then I spent a year in Okinawa, Japan. And
Okay.
then my last tour, active duty, was out at Camp Pendleton, California.
Okay, so you got to go at least a couple different places.
Yes. I asked to go to Okinawa. So while I was at school, I said, just send me as far away as you can.
Well, that's
Yeah, they were like, hey, we're doing assignments next week. And they came back and they said, oh, we can send you to Okinawa. I said, I'm there. So
awesome.
good.
So my next question for you is, why horror and why fantasy?
So I love horror for the fact that, and some people can argue over this, but I really think horror kind of encompasses all emotions.
Yeah.
So you don't really, some of the other genres are defined by relationships, so romance, or mystery thrillers. You're going to get, mystery can be kind of light,
Yeah.
But I really do. I like that there is that range of emotion, which then, of course, to me means that pretty much anything goes.
Right. Everything's in play.
Right. And so you can really touch on, if you can touch on a human emotion, you're going to be able to touch your readers
Right.
in one way or another. They may not like it. I mean, you're not going to please everybody. But that's what I like about horror, is that it really, it invokes a lot of emotion and therefore a lot of response from your audience or your reader.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you don't just go straight horror. There's light moments, so you give them a pause and they can maybe chuckle, and then that makes the horror all the more powerful when you get them back to.
Oh, sure. And I wrote horror a long time ago, and so I have kind of a big gap on 10 or 12 years, and I've just kind of slowly been getting back into it. I don't write full time. I'm not attempting to do any of this full time.
Right.
Kind of at my own pace. And so I actually have the fantasy series. I'm not all the way through it yet, but I consider that dark fantasy. It has some horror elements to it. But there's definitely light moments in that series as well.
Right.
So you can't dredge your audience through the entire time. You've got to pace it. So I see we have our person popping up now.
Yes. So that dovetails nice to my next question, which is, what particular subgenres do you prefer to write in?
So dark fantasy is really my thing. I like to read high fantasy. I'm not great at probably the world building. I really haven't put my mind to it. Chris Grooms, who you have interviewed before, is a very good friend of mine, and he writes an excellent high fantasy series. That's not kind of my thing, but horror, I really like ghost stories. I like creature kind of stuff. I do a bit of gore, but I'm not a splatter punk or extreme horror person.
Right.
At all. I don't really read it. I've tried to a few times recently, and it's just not my jam. So
yeah, I people who like George R.R. Martin, I'm like, if you have to go extra gory all the time, I mean, to me that means that you're not that very good of a writer, because you should be able to elicit responses without,
Right. It's to me, it's kind of like an action, and some people might hate me when I say this. It's kind of like an action movie when it's just all action, and people are just slicing each other up and shooting them up, and it doesn't really do much for me. So, that's just it's got to have something that pulls me in and hits my emotions. And gore, of course, can be um, extreme horror, the slash 'em up kind of stuff. I mean, sure, you get an emotion, but after a period of time, it just kind of, same
Yeah,
old,
you get numb to it. Yeah.
right.
And I like John's comment here. Why is autocorrecting trying to sell me 2 types of wine when he puts in your name?
I don't know. That's interesting.
So,
which kinds of wine?
So how many books do you currently have available on the market?
I think I have 4. So I have the prequel. It was really kind of a reader magnet initially for the dark fantasy series. I call it the Christian Bradford series, or witch fiction. The Emerald Curse, and then the full novel that followed that is called Secrets of Mother. And I'm working on the next one in that series. That title is going to be Blood of Our Fathers, but I don't have a release date for that one yet. And that'll be a trilogy. Once I get a third full-size novel out of that will be that set. And then I have the Malediction Plague that'll come out here in a couple of weeks. Should release right before AuthorCon.
They're your wines.
There we go. When I'll be down at AuthorCon, so I wanted to have that available. And that's a zombie. It's a fun little thing. I like a lot of science. So that one's got a mad scientist kind of twist to it. And then the last one is the anthology that I edited that is going to release, I guess, next week, April 4th, for the public release. It's gone out to our Kickstarters, and that's called The Haunted Zone, a horror anthology by women military veterans. And that's a charity anthology that supports the National Veterans Foundation and their women veterans programs.
Nice. So, wow, you jumped to a couple of my next questions. So
I told you I could get going and just kind of run with it. But
so I have to say I am a little bit jealous because you have not 1, but 2 books on pre-order currently.
I do. Yeah. Well, like I said, I really wanted something more to have available for AuthorCon. And my editor was amazing because I've tried to hit her up in the past and she's got stuff going on. And I sent her a note and I said, listen, I have 25,000 words. I just, I need probably the worst writing I've probably done, where she had to correct so much of my punctuation and stuff. But I jammed out like 20,000, not 20,000, about 12,000 words over 3 or 4 weeks and got it to beta readers really fast and made some changes. And she happened to be available. So I sent it over to her real quick. And so it's going to be tight getting print copies ready, but I should have them by then.
And the Malediction Plague, that is separate from your Christian Bradford series, correct?
Oh, it is. It's totally different. Is that
going to be a series or is that a standalone?
It's a standalone, but I did leave a little opening at the end where one of the characters can continue on. There's a little hint there of possibility, in the future.
So it'll become a 5-book series.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know if I can. I'm not that. I like to change things up a lot. So I'm very type A and focused when I'm focused, but I get bored easily. So I can do like this Christian Bradford series. I've got. It'll be a trilogy. I originally thought it was going to be 5 books, but it's going to be 3 of the novels. That when I do the next book, the Emerald Curse will actually get pulled into Secrets of Mother. So. Because it's pretty short. I think that was only like 17 or 18,000 words. But I have, 40, 50 outlines. I have an FBI series that's itching to be written too. That's going to be about 4 books. So there's a lot more to do.
40 outlines, you say? Wow.
Well, yeah, ideas. I don't really. Yeah. I guess I don't really outline, but I just brain dump, And I just set it aside and I'll look at it. Some things I don't remember ever writing down. I'll be like, when in the world did I do that? Put down that idea. But I have plenty to keep me busy.
I'm sure. So I have one series. I'm writing a second series now. I'll publish probably in the summer. And then I'm going to start with a third series. And I have a total of 6 series that I have notes for that I want to write. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do 6 series. I'm like, I'll do 3. I'll just go A to B to C to A to B, until one finishes. And then I'll throw in one. But I was counting. I was like, if I write all the books I want, I'm at 23.
There you go. See, so now you got to quit your day job and do this like I did, but I still, then other things encroach in, and I kind of I want to do 3 of my own projects a year, and I still have a hard time doing that. So, life gets in the way.
So tell us about Christiane Bradford. What is she like?
So she starts out in Emerald Curse. She's an 18-year-old because some people have considered it YA, young adult fiction, but I made her 18 because I didn't want to fall into that age group. But anyway, and she is given a gift on her 18th birthday, and her and her boyfriend and a few other friends have off doing crazy stuff. He actually winds up taking this amulet and giving it to her, unknowing that it is a family heirloom that's been lost. And so she starts experiencing ghosts and, magical things happening around her, and needs the help of a mentor to dispel the curse. So what that does, though, it opens her up to the world of witches and ghosts and lots of other things that she's not ever experienced through her life. Emerald Curse. And then it brings you over to Secrets of Mother, where she is trying to get indoctrinated into the local coven, and they refuse her because of her mother's activities. And she never knew her mother was a witch, much less that her mother was doing things that were questionable, and that the coven had been investigating her mother for quite some time. So she has to prove herself in several ways, and to herself as far as her magical abilities as a young new witch. And she deals with this ability to talk with the dead, and not really still understanding that. And demons come into play, how they serve this woman who runs this crazy kind of cult thing. But it all, she winds up, the coven kind of comes in to her aid, and they kind of work together, but she really has to prove herself along the way. And then her and her mother's relationship actually winds up being repaired over time based on everything that's discovered and what her mother's been doing to protect her over the years, and why she's kept this secret. So, yeah. So
it's fun because it's not witches bad.
No. I mean, there are some bad actors in there, but right. Most of them are kind of what you consider a individualistic approach to witchcraft. As far as green witches, and they're really trying to elevate their own energies, I guess, kind of thing. And all of this other craziness has gone on really to protect Christiane from a world that she's been unaware of. And then this coven doesn't, it's not out to the public, but they've been, squashing other elements in the world, keep us normal folks from knowing what's really out there, I guess.
Cool. So this trilogy that's going to end up being a 5-book series.
No, it's going to be 3. It's going to be 3.
I just say that because my series was going to be a 4-book series, and I've now finished book 4 of my 7-book series.
Oh my. Okay.
So, yeah.
No, I can see it finishing up in 3. I could maybe do it in 2, but it would get rid of a whole thing that I kind of want to get into with the third one. That's a bit of a worldview, and so I like taking on big issues, I guess, in my writing. So
cool. And so next, I want to talk about the Haunted Zone.
The Haunted Zone, yeah, that's my passion project. So, yeah, that'll come out April 4th, as I mentioned, And this this came about not really. I really wasn't going to go do other works. I really just wanted to kind of sit back quiet, and this fits a pattern that winds up happening is that I kind of really want to just work in the corner somewhere, and then I kind of get an idea that won't leave me alone, and I run, and just take care of it and get it all done. So I did an interview with the Horror Writers Association back in November of 2022 when they do their Veterans in Horror Spotlight. And one of those questions was about who do what other veterans do you know who are writing horror that readers should read their stuff? And I rattled off a few folks, and but they were all men, and I couldn't think of anybody that I knew that was a woman veteran that was writing horror. And now a lot of that is again on me, because I had been away for 10 or 12 years. I really wasn't following, especially on the indie side. I really wasn't reading much for my own pleasure during that time of work, because there was just a lot going on.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that was just that I wasn't current on who was doing what. And so part of it was I wanted to learn for myself, but I also wanted to highlight them and really bring us all together and see what we could put together. So I hemmed and hawed on that for a few months, did some research, found out that there were a few other projects that had open submission calls over, I think I went back like 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. And none of those, I couldn't find any anthologies that corresponded with those submission calls. So those books never made it to fruition. They never made it to publication. Right. And so, of course, that fueled the fire, because I can be very stubborn. And when I set my mind to something, I just kind of, I go and do it. So, so anyway, I had to put the anthology together, and I put a submission call out and had to extend it a few times, because we are just a very small part of the horror community. There just are not that many. Right. I had about 4 dozen submissions total. We wound up with 21 authors in the anthology. But it really wound up being a passion project then, because it was helping. There were actually quite a few that were writing horror. I just didn't know it. So It was a great discovery for me to see all of these women that were actually doing a lot, and I just didn't know. But then also some really good new voices that were a couple that are active duty folks that are in the anthology. But people that wanted to try their hand at horror. I had one lady, I can't remember her name, but we went back and forth with her submission and really did a lot of edits, probably 4 times. And she, horror just wasn't, she finally just realized it just really wasn't something that she wanted to do. Right. Her interest was, I believe, memoirs, if I remember correctly, which is not something that I'm into. Right. So I might read an article. I don't know if I'm going to read somebody's, life story, maybe, later on. I'm having fun with horror right now. So I sent her over to some folks that I knew that published that type of stuff. But I had a great time just interacting with folks, whether I took their stories or not. We really kind of did it as a collaboration on some of those back and forth, as far as new folks that hadn't yet written at all, and just learning about the business, learning what they. I had no problem doing that. And if I had 200 submissions, I probably wouldn't have done that. Right. But I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot from the other ladies that I met who have been doing this for quite a while. And we just, the stars aligned. I had great help finding the cover designer, was recommended by another horror writer, another publisher. She actually has her own publishing company too. So it was just chatting with a lot of folks and getting the connections made. And everybody who heard about it was really into the idea, and that helped a lot too.
I looked on Amazon. Was Pamela K. Kinney, did she do a story for?
She did. She actually has a story and a poem in there. So yeah, horror. Her short story is Haunted App, and then she has a poem in there. ghosts of written words.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know who else you may know, but yeah, there are 20 others. I have stuff in there, but I really don't toot my own horn. I want to toot the horn of the other 20 writers there, and our cover artist and our interior designer. Yeah.
I was just saying that because we interviewed Pamela earlier last month, I think.
That's right, you did. Yeah.
And the one thing she said that was interesting, and I kind of like, well, yeah, that makes sense, is she said horror is not a genre. Horror is, anything can be horror. You can have horror and fantasy, or it's not like a genre. You can go anywhere.
Well, I've mentioned this, I think, in other interviews, is that I have an issue with the I think how horror is I don't want to say demonized, but it's really not, by general standards, given as much respect as some of the other areas, Yeah. And yet I consider, to me, like crime thrillers, that's kind of its own genre type thing,
Right.
The way that we're in the business meant to follow these guidelines on where to put your stuff. But to me, that's a horror. That's really horror.
Yeah.
Anything that's a human being is being horrible to another. That's horror.
Yeah.
So a lot of these other genres to me are actually horror, and that horror is the primary, and these others are subgenres to me. But nobody's asking my opinion for that. We all have to play by these other rules. So.
That's a wonderful thing about being an independent author, is you can do whatever you want.
Right. And I don't have patience. I don't sub myself very often. I don't know anything about doing queries for agents. I've never even attempted that. I haven't subbed, especially after that big gap, just because of my age. I'm just I like to do longer works usually.
Mm-hmm.
So answering short story calls, unless I'm really have a gap with what I've told you, 40 some things, I've always kind of got a timeline of what I really want to work towards.
Right.
If I start looking at doing subs for others in their short stories or whatever, I get off track. And I learned that a couple of years ago. I didn't do anything really because I was kind of doing, I need to, kind of answer some of these sub calls, and I was never getting to what I wanted to do. So I might do a few, but it's just really not it's not where I want to go. So
yeah. So I actually, just a couple of weeks ago, a person who wants to be an author, thinks they want to be an author. I'm like, oh, you poor soul.
Learn the business. I don't know. There's a lot that people don't realize until they get on the other side. But
I told them the only skill you absolutely have to be an author is you have to be stubborn.
Yes, persistent.
Yeah,
follow through.
Yeah, as long as you can, it's like my first draft, I will not show anyone. I will, hurt them if they attempt to read that horrible thing that would break the Geneva Convention if you were forced it upon someone.
Right.
And I'm like, it was terrible. The second one was terrible. The third one was very bad. I'm like, I've written this story 9 times now, and I'm finally like, okay, I will publish. Well, this was the first one I wrote. After that, I kind of, learned the ropes.
Right. And you learn quickly. You do. You just, people get in their own way, I think.
Yeah.
And they get nervous or insecure. My philosophy has always been pretty much about anything, I guess. But with the writing is that if I've finished it, if I finished that first draft, I mean, that's really you've hit the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
Somebody else can help you all along the way if you really are concerned or a little frightened or whatever. And especially in the horror community, there are so many people that are willing to help and bring you along that nothing can stand in your way unless you stand in your own way at that point. But you've got to finish that first draft because nobody wants to talk to you unless they've got something that they can look at.
Right. You have to have something to work with.
Right. And, and like you said, the first draft you don't want to really show that to anybody. There are so many tools that you can do your own editing or, get with beta readers and get some, just ask some people that know what they're doing, for some valuable input. And then I did a lot of research because it'd been, like I said, 10, 12 years since I'd been back in this, and I didn't know what anybody was doing. The market had definitely changed. How you even submitted things into Amazon or to Ingram Spark, and it was Create Space or whatever the heck it was for Amazon when I was publishing, the poetry book.
Yeah.
I didn't publish anything else before on my own, but so it's you've got to educate yourself because everybody else is trying to do the same stuff, and the market's kind of always changing. There's always little tweaks to the publishing world that everybody's trying to keep up with. But finish that first draft. You'll feel just a huge sense of accomplishment when you get that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the one thing I don't tell new authors or potential new authors is, I'm like, the easy part is the writing.
Yes.
The marketing is much, much harder.
If somebody could crack the code on marketing, I just don't. I've wasted money on Amazon ads, and it got me, just big old chicken egg, nothing.
It got Jeff Bezos a little bit richer.
Right.
That's about it. Yeah.
That's it. I've done a little Facebook ads, which, depending, I really haven't looked at the numbers too closely. Probably evened out, maybe. But it's the marketing thing is tough. It's a tough one. If you ever find anybody, you let me know who's doing marketing right. So, and it doesn't cost a fortune. You can put a ton of money out there, and maybe it'll hit something, but.
So Ro and I think we both pretty much agree. We don't do any advertising, but we go to Comic-Cons and we sell our books there, which is its own misery. But if I sell a hardback, I'm selling it for $25 versus my first book on Amazon is 99 cents, and I get 35 cents of that.
Right. Well, I've not really been, I'm just now, I've done local events. I've sat in libraries, and at first I balked at that, thinking nobody's going to buy books at a library. I've sat there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and sold 10 books, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, wow,
that's not bad. Barnes and Noble, 8 or 10 books. When I did Secrets of Mother last year around Halloween time, I went back again, and I think I sold 8 then. And she's like, "That's a really good day here for a single author." And I went, okay, a couple hours, but I'm AuthorCon. This will be the first one that I'm really going as a vendor, and then I have other events going on throughout the year that I've signed up to be a vendor. But I figured I've got four books. Before that, I didn't think it was enough to kind of sit down and spend that money or sit there and.
I was dumb enough to start when I had one book.
Oh,
and
did you sell?
You learn to hustle because the one event I did, at that time I had 2 books, and Ro and I were next to each other in booths. And then one guy came through and he's talking to Ro. He's like, "Oh, I'll buy one of everything in hardback." And Ro's like, 8 books, fantastic. And then he comes to me, he's like, "Okay, I'll buy one of everything." I'm like, "I have 2 books." And I'm like,
there you go.
But you learned that you better have a pitch,
right?
And I'm lucky because I learned that, and and then I've changed up my pitch now, and
take your log lines, go 1 or 2 sentences that you just for each book, and
So it was good that it taught me that. The first one I ever did was AwesomeCon in Washington D.C., which cost $350 for the table.
Wow. Okay.
And
I sold crazy.
Yeah, I sold is 3 days. I sold $379 or something. So,
okay.
But the cost of the books is about 50% profit. So yeah, I lost money, and that's before the hotel that I had to get.
But you probably networked a lot. You met a lot of folks that could, a lot of it is networking and connecting with other people, for projects down the road, or just making friends in the business. So I definitely understand that. I don't know if I'm going more for, I think, the experience. It'd be great to sell books, but first con, we'll see how it goes.
So where are you at? Where are you located?
I live in Stafford, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
So Williamsburg, which is where AuthorCon 3 is.
Right.
is in Williamsburg. I'm not doing the one in St. Louis. I can't remember the dates for that, but I think we have something else going on.
So Stafford is Northern Virginia?
It is. Yeah. We're about 40 miles south of DC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So my Virginia geography is okay.
I don't know where you are either. So
Hopewell, just south of Richmond.
Oh yeah, okay.
So,
yeah, I used to have a guy on one of my teams. This was a few years back. He would drive from Hopewell.
Oh wow.
Here as a contractor, but he would come in at like 6 a.m. and then he'd leave at like 2:30 or 3. So that he was, well, back then, I mean, this was 2000, I don't know, 14, 15, somewhere in there. Not that traffic is ever any good around here, but still he was kind of missing it just enough. And then I'm assuming that he's probably remote at this point after COVID. He's probably worked it out to just, stay that way, or he's government. I don't know. I've lost track of him. Yeah, but that's a hike. Yeah, that's a hike.
Yeah, I was going to say Williamsburg is probably about 35 minutes, maybe 40 minutes for me to get to. So.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, you could go there and not have to stay over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be at AuthorCon. I'm going to actually be up in Northern Virginia.
Oh, okay.
At Big Lick Comic Con Nova in Chantilly.
Oh, nice. I'm attempting to get to a Comic Con in Fredericksburg. I haven't gotten a response back on my application.
The one at the end of June?
June or July? I can't remember. Is it the end of June?
I think if it's Fredericksburg Comic and Toy or something like that.
Yes.
They have like a dinosaur mascot.
I think so.
Yep.
So Chris Grooms actually did it last year. So he had told me about it. He's like, you really need to go. So I've applied. I haven't heard back.
So I'll be there for that one. So
okay, good.
Hopefully see you.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll be there. I don't know. And then I've got a couple others. There's the Virginia Witches Pride, I think they call it. Is going in Fredericksburg in September. So I'll be at that. And then the Independent Book Festival in Fredericksburg in October. Those are I don't know if those are big, but they're big enough where I don't have to travel anywhere. I can just go and come
that's nice. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm gonna get back to my questions because I wrote them out.
I told you we were going to get off track.
Hey, that's okay. Okay, has being in the military influenced your writing? Or has
sure.
It been to...
I think so. I don't even know. I don't know if it's affected everything in my life. So I was the youngest of 7 and the only girl. So I was the youngest, and I was the only one that went in the Marine Corps. I had 2 brothers that were Air Force. My father had been in the Navy during World War II for a short period of time. Grandfather, who I never knew, was World War I. So the only youngest girl, goes in the Marine Corps. But people said that I was shy. I was just kind of probably quiet because I analyze a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I also had 6 older brothers that were, kind of beating up on people and stuff that I didn't know about as I was growing up too. But it made me probably much more self-assured. I probably wouldn't have done some of the things that I've done throughout my life because I wouldn't have had the confidence to just go out and do it. So those type of things, sure. Ideas for I've strong women characters definitely comes from my military service, and meeting other women who are not bashful in any way in doing things that they want to do.
Right.
So definitely it's influenced me not only in my writing, but in everything else.
And what works were influential to you? Like, did you try to copy the style, or you just like the reading of it, or?
Yeah, I don't really copy anybody's style, and
well, that's good.
Or attempt to. Well, part of that is that I'm really bad, except for like really big names. But I'm really bad at remembering book titles and other author names. So thank God you haven't hit one of those questions yet, because I'm really, like, if you said, oh, whose book do you, currently, I wouldn't be able to give you probably a title really without really having to think about it. I'm just really not good. I'm not good with like movie stars or that type of stuff. It's just, it doesn't stay with me. But yeah, what was your question? See, I told you I was going to do this.
Well, I was asking which works have been influential to you, but now I just want to ask, name 5 indie authors.
Oh gosh, really? Well,
No,
I've got
yes.
20 in Haunted Zone, so I could rattle off those really fast. But the classics. So I'm going to say Shirley Jackson, obviously.
Yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe. We had his complete works. I still have them on my bookshelf over here.
Yeah.
I was not a big Stephen King fan growing up. I still have never read Gunslinger all the way through, even though I've tried to do it like 4 or 5 times. It's just not one that sticks with me. I read a lot of Clive Barker. I'm a huge Hellraiser fan. Anne Rice, loved Anne Rice, Lestat and her, Interview with a Vampire and all that stuff. So I read those at a young age, being the youngest of 7. And I mean, our house was kind of crazy and dysfunctional and, a lot of stuff that, everybody else deals with. But yeah, I was reading without much supervision. So,
okay.
I read a lot of different things.
So next question, kind of a fun question.
Sure.
Do you kill off any of your old bosses in your books?
Oh, not a boss. Not a boss.
Coworker?
Not really coworker either. Just somebody who's really annoying and got in the way of getting things done. So I'm a stickler for deadlines too. So and communication. I'm just really big on to get anything done and have a cohesive relationship. You've got relationships at work.
Right.
To lead people properly. It's really about providing them the tools and everything that they need to get their jobs done. They're going to come in and tell me their problems. I'm going to take care of their problems that I can take care of. But, if somebody stands in your way or is difficult, some people watching this will know exactly who I'm talking about. But somebody meets an untimely death just because I had fun with it. And that's in The Malediction Plague. So.
Okay.
When they read that, it's fun.
And how many times did you go over that scene to make sure it was just perfect?
I visualized it first. So I kind of visualize my scenes like a movie. I don't know if other people do that when they write. I'm assuming that they do. So I had fun with that one. It's he gets there's a little not eating like Hannibal Lecter, but there's some weird stuff in that zombie tale there. So it's good.
Okay.
I had fun with it.
So are you plotter or pantser, or like you said, you visualize first?
Kind of a mix. So I don't know if it was Tim Wagner's book, his nonfiction on writing. Again, I can't remember the title. I have it over there somewhere. But or somebody else's, there is an idea on taking your summary and kind of breaking it apart. I don't know if that was Tim's. And I tried that. It's really with the crime thriller, which is also a passion project of a story that one of my brothers attempted to get done. It was really kind of angsty writing, but he passed away in 2018. So I promised him that I would finish the story. I'm making it a crime thriller. Some of the things that happen in that book are based on his experiences and a relationship that he had. And some, awful court cases and, that kind of stuff that he went through. But I'm fictionalizing all of that. And then, so that'll be a story. I hope to have it out next year. So that one, I kind of use that, kind of doing a summary, and then you take that apart and you kind of make those the headers for each of your chapters type of thing. And kind of place some of the incidents that he had going on. Me making it into a crime thriller is really, the whole FBI and whatever's going to be involved there is some other crime elements that happen are, not real, but I've got to, plug those in. So, but most of the time, like I did in my college days, I never wrote outlines, but I think on it and twist it apart and take it apart. So I'm doing outlines and I'm, doing these brain, bubbles and stuff in my head.
Yeah.
And then I would just sit down and dump. I would dump my papers. I would just, I'm your typical working chaos. If I was working on a thesis or something, I would have my research all over and I would pluck. I'd know where they were. Don't move my papers.
Right.
What I needed for reference, and put it back down. And, I'd have 30 things laying around. I don't have the paper anymore for my creative writing. But I do a lot of, dumping from my brain onto the page and then organize it, I guess, after that. If it needs organizing, I'm usually pretty good about kind of plotting it all out in my head.
So you understand this?
Oh, yes. I've rearranged my office, but I had little Post-it notes that I was like, oh, I'm missing something, and I'd forgotten an element. So I had, this is my complaint one, but I had Post-it notes with, and I'm like, what am I? So I had those laying all over the back wall. Actually had it up during a Horror Writers Association Virginia chapter meeting one day. And I remember seeing all the little stickies behind my head as they were across the wall. But now I have two big, you can probably see it in the corner. I have my old office before I left program manager. I had an entire wall that was a big whiteboard. And I liked to see the entire program kind of out and who was working what. And then if, a wrench got thrown in there, then I.
Yeah.
So that's those are two, so I can dry erase and whatever, put things across to stay on point. Because life just gets in the way, of trying to write. So I have a tendency now, especially I've had COVID 2 or 3 times. So brain fog is definitely a thing, and it has yet to lift, that I will forget where I am after an interruption. And so trying to get back on point, I try to keep those notes handy now versus I used to be able to kind of pick it up from my head a little easier.
So, I had a question for you and it just went away.
I got a feeling.
Here we are. Do you have favorite settings that you like to go to when you write your books, or do yours take place all over? Is it like Virginia setting or?
Well, I haven't done enough writing, I would think, to kind of set a stage, I guess. Yeah. The story that I have in the Haunted Zone, I really wasn't going to go there. We're talking about myself. It's a folklore kind of thing right from here. I think I wrote for something else, and they didn't take it. And I had a few people that had read that story beforehand, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're going to put that in the anthology, aren't you?" And I went, well, I wasn't, but I am now. So, so that's in there. But I write my family history, which I didn't know when I started the witch fiction, the Christiane Bradford series. I actually have ancestors that are from the Salem witch trials. So that has played in a bit now that I know that information into how I'm writing the series. But no, I actually, my degree's in environmental management. It's not in creative writing whatsoever. I was always kind of a science geek. I still like the sciences. I'm a big environmental climate change kind of person, follow all of that. So eventually I'd like to have a lot more kind of science integrated, not necessarily science fiction,
right,
but more kind of almost reality-based issues that are going on that get embedded into my writing.
So I mean, I can feel you. I'm a chemist by training.
Oh, okay.
And my series takes place like 300 BC Britain, so there are no chemists, but there are druids. And so I told people, I go, you do not know how much I researched. And if I have a plant that, this herbal remedy will stop bleeding, well, I researched what plants will do this. Now, I ramped up the effectiveness of.
Oh, sure.
And I was like, yarrow will stop bleeding. But yarrow is an Anglo-Saxon word, so I can't use that because this predates the Anglo. I was nuts.
Well, and that's part of why I don't write high fantasy. There's a lot of research that goes into world building to make sure that, and I would be that way. I'd kind of, I want things to be based in realistic data, I guess, to a degree, so that it has a foundation. Actually, in Malediction Plague, there's some the the scientist goes into how he's created his serum. And so there's some sort of talk of specific ingredients that people could, and I researched those to see if it was plausible for where I wanted it to go in the book, where people can kind of stretch their mind a little bit and it would make sense. So yeah, there's definitely some science-based stuff in Malediction Plague.
Cool. So I want to go back to the Haunted Zone.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of great authors, you and Pamela and lots of others.
Right.
But what was how did that start? What was the thought that crystallized that said we need to do this and we need to have all women military veterans to do this?
Well, so like I had told you, I had done the research and nobody had those 3 or 4 or 5 projects. I can't remember how many they were.
Right.
None of those, not one of those projects made it to publication.
Right.
I didn't go back 10 or 15 years, but in my reaching out, I think I might have already put an open sub call out. But I think I talked about it in a Virginia chapter meeting where, somebody said, oh, she might have been in the meeting and said, hey, I'm a veteran, and, so-and-so is a veteran. And so I just started writing down names. And so those folks, anybody that I got their name and I could track down an email or, through their website, I sent them an invitation. Yep. And said, this is what I'm working on. And this is going to happen one way or another. I was just bound and determined to do that. And then the mindset was, nobody knew me. I mean, I'm nobody in this. Nobody. If they know my name, it's just a freak coincidence at this point. Or I've plastered everything about the Haunted Zone out there, and now they're sick of seeing me. But then I really knew that I had to do a Kickstarter in order to, first of all, just get the word out and get some initial support, because I'd been away from this for so long. And so I was researching that, how to put that together. Had the open sub call out. I think I had to do a couple of extensions to get enough people involved, to feel like I was getting a book. I think we landed at about 70,000 words, 67 in actual stories. And then I met our cover designer, Christina Osborne. She's Trueborn Design, through Red Lagoo. I don't know if you know who she is. She's a horror writer, and she runs Death Knell Press. I met her at AuthorCon last year. I'd only gone for a few hours and talked to her about trying to find a woman veteran. At that point, I was starting to zero in. Well, if I can get everybody involved in this, illustration wise, cover design, and all the writers. And I really wanted it from cover to cover to be all women vets. And so I got her name. Another Marine Corps veteran, Jen Moffat, she got me into the combat artist page and introduced me to Elise McKelvey, who's a Marine Corps veteran, also combat artist. She does a lot of, she's done the portrait for the Commandant of the Marine Corps. She's gone all over the country. She's, been deployed all over the world, doing drawings of folks in combat or, on station, wherever they are. Now she's not in the Marine Corps anymore, but she still does a lot of military artwork where she does a lot of memorializations, for reserve centers or, wherever. But she's on the move, and I was just tickled to death that she was available, and she has done 10 of the interior illustrations for us.
Nice.
If we'd gotten higher in our Kickstarter, she would have done 9 more, so every short story. But we just didn't quite get there. And I did those out of pocket, and 9 more would have been a little more than I think my husband would have been like, we're going to put a cap on this at some point. But they're great. She was great to work with. And it all kind of came together. I gave myself plenty of time to get all of the work done. And I've done formatting and putting manuals and all that kind of stuff together in the defense world. So it was really easy to kind of move that over and do that from here. So it was great.
Cool. So for your work in particular, and probably for the longer works, because short stories, you don't have that much of a choice, but are your stories, do they tend to be fast paced or do they tend to be more slow builds when you write?
Malediction Plague, it's a novella, so that's definitely a little faster paced. But Secrets of Mother is a probably a slow, probably a slow burn, I would say. You know, it has some. It's, I don't know, maybe about 30 chapters. There's obviously elements in the beginning to kind of draw the reader in, but I think it really kind of kicks up around the chapter 8 level as far as, oh, this is getting really interesting. This is happening, you know, that kind of thing. There needed to be obviously some buildup and some tension and stuff to draw folks in. But yeah, I don't think I don't know if I'd say that I'm literary really, but I have a tendency to I like to be descriptive, so without a lot of world building. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I don't think I can see me. Maybe it'll change in a few years, but high fantasy is I think that's a little beyond what I want to wrap my head around. So
I can tell you, when I write, the hardest thing by far is the first draft.
Oh, definitely.
Going from nothing to something, that's hard. But Absolutely. After that, I'm like, you know what? The first time through, I just want to get a plot, and does this story, will this keep the interest of the people? And then I go back and the characters have been kind of fleshed out and they start telling me, no, I'd never do that. And then I have to change things because, you know, my characters start talking to me. And then the third final pass, I do more than 3 passes, but the last one, I'll read the scene and then I'll just sit there. Okay, what happened? You know, try to visualize it. And I'm like, everything over here is white and featureless. Maybe I should mention something about that.
Oh, sure.
So setting is the very, very last thing that I put into my books.
Right.
I mean, I have a little bit here and there, but the last pass through, that's what I'm reading for is, okay, if you're a visual reader, I have to give you something visual to see.
Well, and I do. I'm a very visual kind of like setting a scene, and I've put that in, like I'm standing in wherever I'm trying to describe, you know, action taking place. And then it's also when I send it out to beta readers, I kind of ask. I can't remember where it is. You know, what do you think of the first? Might have been 10 pages. I think it's like the first 3 chapters or something like that. You know, if you weren't reading this, you know, to be a beta reader for the whole thing, you know, would you put this book down at this point? You know, if you did, if you would have, why? You know, those type of things to make sure that they're. Most of them are really good, and of course, I've been doing this longer than I have, so that's always been helpful. And I am not afraid of a red pen. So, you know, I've edited for a long time. And, you know, I specifically always like having the red because it really jumps out. But yeah, I'm not afraid of hearing critical feedback. In fact, I would rather hear all of that up front than to get something published out there. And then people go, wait a minute, what? There's a huge plot hole here. Or what happened to this person? You just kind of dropped them off the face of the earth and we never hear from them again. Or that's never happened, but you know, there's always a first time. So
I got a beta read report back last night at 10 o'clock, and the woman's like, oh, Mike, I hope you're not upset. I have a lot of comments in the first quarter of your book, and then it settles down. I'm like, I wish you had a lot of comments throughout the whole thing. I mean, editing is just when it's like every time you're like, okay, my book just became a little bit better, and it just became a little bit better.
Absolutely.
So I love editing, and like you, show me that red pen.
I can be kind of hard. I'm not the most, I don't know. I don't know if I want to say engaging, but I'm pretty direct. It could be a leftover from being in the Marine Corps. I don't know. But, and I kind of warn people that I've never done beta reading for them before. I've never, because I'm pretty much, if I'm beta reading for you, I'm probably going to mark some edits and things in there as I'm going along, just because I see it and I'm going to plug in, you know, they can take it or leave it, you know, but I don't want to leave it hanging. So I'll probably make those in there. And I'll put a lot of comments and I'm on task. So I'm kind of blunt, you know, I'm just, this is what I'm seeing. And, you know, so I'll kind of gloss it over in my letter back to them, in a summary type of thing, but be like, I'm just focused when I'm doing it. Yeah. And so therefore, just understand I'm not really, covering your feelings right now. We can talk about those after you've seen, I'm just, I'm trying to make what I'm seeing. This is what I'm commenting on and having an issue with, but they can take it or leave it. I mean, it's up to them. They're the author.
Yep. I, way back when I was in a whatever thing where you got to trade chapters with other authors.
Oh yeah.
And, I was like, okay, I finished my book, but I want someone else to read it. So I had two different people I did this. So I'd read one of their chapters. They'd read one of mine.
Right.
And I felt so bad. And it made me gun shy to want to beta read again, because both of them, I'm like, here's a serious plot hole. This doesn't make sense. Why was this true 3 chapters ago, but now it's not true now? You got to fix this. And he's like, okay, I'll fix it. I don't have any more chapters for you, but I'll continue to read yours. I'm like, no. I'm like, now I just feel guilty. And that happened to 2 different people. So 2 of them, they read my story all the way through, and 2 of them I shut down. I'm like, I'm sorry, but there are glaring plot holes here.
Right. I know. I mean, I've done that in the past. I don't, I'd like to see their whole story, I guess, or at least, probably 3 or 4 chapters at a time kind of thing. But yeah, it's hard when you do the chapters back and forth. And if your personalities, and not personalities, but how they handle criticism or critical feedback is also, you got to just make sure that they are accepting of, whatever form it comes back in, I'm not doing it to be mean. I'm just, I tend to be very focused.
Right. It's never personal. It's just, this is what I'm seeing.
I'm not one really for small talk. I'm not great at smoothing over edges with people. And, I usually help anybody that I can. Yeah. And if I can't help them, or if I'm somebody else that I know, like their genre, or like I said, memoirs. I've been asked, I think 3 times about memoirs, and I know folks over in this women in publishing group, and I send them over, to Alexa over there, and that's more their tribe, I think. But I've never been one really to be able to do the nurturing, smooth talk, before. And I'm like, hey, I can just warn you that this is how I do it. Don't take it personally. It's not, I'm not thinking of jabbing or anything. I'm seeing what I see and then commenting, and I'll smooth it over in my cover letter back to you, kind of thing, my summary.
And my guess is you would not want to see that yourself, where someone's like, this was a good effort. And, it's always you'd rather just say, hey, here's a problem.
Right. Yeah. See, when somebody just, I've had a few people that have just kind of read through and give me light comments.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, that's okay. But, if I'm asking for, especially if I'm asking as a beta reader or a alpha reader, not that I've had, done the alpha reader type thing, but, and they don't really give me anything, that I'm like, okay, I know it's not that great. There's always room for improvement.
Right.
At some point you just got to throw your hands up and go, okay, this is good enough, because,
right. You're never going to get it perfect.
You're never going to put it out there. And then you get other folks, which, have been doing this type of, been writing a lot longer than I have, and much more successful and recognized in the horror world. And they give great, really deep feedback, so that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
I want to hear somebody's opinion on what they're finding wrong with it or right with it, or glaring issues, so that they can be fixed before I put it out there to the world. Because my thing is if I finished it, I'm going to finish the editing and I'm going to put it out in the world. So I can't control how a reader's going to take it.
Right.
But if I put in the effort, then it's going to get out there.
Right. So here's a question I warned you about before we went live.
Okay. I can't remember what it was now, so this is good.
What is the weirdest job and or duty that you've had?
Oh, that's right. Well, so job-wise, I do have another little tale for you, though. But when I was out at Camp Pendleton, what is it out there? 7th Engineer Support Battalion, I think it is. So I worked part-time at a thrifty drugstore. And so, of course, I had to wear hairnet and, scoop ice cream and wear, little uniform like I don't know, CVS or whatever. I don't know if they still have thrifty there. So that was an odd job, I guess. It's not anything that's all that crazy. But when I was on duty in Okinawa, so I was rail thin. I could eat whole pizzas and not gain an ounce. It's definitely not like that now. And I had hair very long, bun, whatever. But I was on duty overnight in the barracks. Back then it was an old Quonset hut. So the women's barracks was, and we had chicken wire. It looked like a prison camp, for the women's barracks because, the guys, we had to keep the guys out, right? So I'm on duty and I had my cover off. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning. I think I was writing a friend of mine, and I felt something on my hair, and it's just a little bit where you kind of think, oh, it's just, you got to scratch, right? And I have a ton of hair, still have a ton of hair. And so now a roach had fallen in on top of my head. So my hair's in a bun, and this thing just is digging through, crawling through. So I am, on duty, and I wind up picking, I lost my mind, jumping all over, shaking my hair, took it all out, shaking my hair. And that was I never felt comfortable. I'd been there about 3 months, I think. And it still stuck with me. I mean, that was back in, 1986. So it's been almost 40 years, and I still remember that moment. So,
yep.
Yeah.
So what events do you have coming up?
Oh, we have a lot going on.
Yeah, I know. So
so April 4th, we're going to do a Zoom launch that evening. I've kind of posted on all my social medias, but the event is kind of created on, I think, Facebook through Tundra Swan Press. But we're going to have quite a few, I think at least half of the authors are going to be on that Zoom launch.
Yep.
Have 4 or 5 doing readings at night. We'll do games and prizes, of course. One of the events is if you've pre-ordered the ebook, and there's an email address, tundraswanpress@gmail. Send a proof of your pre-order.
Yep.
And then we're going to draw names at the end of that launch for somebody to get one of the hardcover editions of the book out of those that have done the pre-order. So this is kind of fun.
That is nice. A very nice book.
Yeah. So and then April 6th, we're going to do another launch party that Saturday afternoon down at Barnes & Noble in Fredericksburg. And I think we have 4 or 5 of the authors. Sam Casey, she's active duty actually at Annapolis teaching English there. She's going to come down. I think Sarah Crocall Smith is coming down. She lives in Maryland. Pamela Kinney will be there. I'm not sure if Tara Moeller is going to be able to be there. I'll be there, of course. And then we have another event April 20th. Of course, we'll be at AuthorCon, the 12th through the 14th in Williamsburg. I know Pamela will be there. I think KP Kulski is coming down from Pennsylvania. She lives in Ohio. But there are going to be quite a few folks that are in the book that are also going to be at AuthorCon. And then these are all, other than AuthorCon, all of these are the Haunted Zone only events to promote the launch of the book. April 20th, we're in, I think it's Chesterfield Town Center, at Barnes & Noble. Again, probably 4 or 5 of us at that one. And then we are doing on Armed Services Day, which is May 18th, I believe. We'll be at Book People Richmond.
Okay.
And doing that event, I think there are about a half a dozen of us right now that are going there as well. Nice. So those are all just the Haunted Zone related events. Again, it's a charity anthology, so it supports the National Veterans Foundation and their women veterans programs.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's excellent.
A lot going on.
And what about for your book that's launching April 11th? Do you have anything planned for?
I'm going to, so we go, yeah, we have a cruise that we're going on the end of May into early June. So we'll be in Alaska for a few months. But I'll probably do another Barnes & Noble signing here in Fredericksburg for the Malediction Plague after we return in June. Like I said, I might be at Comic-Con. I haven't gotten word back yet on that. So that may not happen. But I'll do some other events in between. And then obviously September, I'll have that at the Virginia Witches Pride and the Fredericksburg Independent Book Festival in October. So that's all I have planned, but that's a lot more than I usually do. So.
Okay. Let's see. Before I forget, I put it up here. Our next interview is going to be tomorrow night. Tobias Youngblood. He writes urban fantasy, and he will be on the show. So if you're still here watching us, check out tomorrow night. And if you didn't see the whole episode, then shame on you. You need to go back and rewatch it now.
I know, right? Grab a beverage first, though.
Absolutely.
And then sit down. There you go.
So, Sirrah, thank you for this. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
No, I think you covered it well. So okay. That's great.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, well, I'm going to hit end stream, but this is weird. It takes like 4 or 5 seconds to actually end, so we end up just waving awkwardly at the camera until it finally. So, okay, everybody. Bye.